Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to give you three quick demonstrations on how to make a vector portrait using Paint 3D. The first one I'm going to show you is going to be a black and white one. The next one is going to be something monochromatic, and the next one is going to be using like all of the colors from a color photograph. A vector portrait is what you're seeing on my screen here, and it offers a huge variety of like how in detail or how little detail you want to have in your picture. It really is like a super open, the world is your oyster type of thing. So you can see this is the style, and we're going to use Paint 3D to create this. Okay, so I've shown you here, basically what I've done beforehand is I've downloaded a couple of pictures. So what you'll do is you'll open up Paint 3D, you'll open up a new canvas, and then you're gonna go into your menu and you're gonna insert. So I'm gonna take one of my pictures, I'm gonna find it on my desktop. I always usually try to put it somewhere that I know I can find it. My desktop or my download folder is usually where I go to. And so here I have my my first one. I will point out, I chose this one because it's not a perfect picture, but it can show you what'll happen. I'm going to draw your attention right here to this area here. While this is a really cool photograph, it's got some nice high contrast, it's got nice whites and darks, but you do lose a bit of detail over here. Now, the good thing about vector portraits is you kind of do lose detail, and so that might be a thing that you're okay with. So, as I said, we're going to keep this one black and white. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do this. I usually like to zoom in on mine. It just tends to be a little bit easier to see, to get in. The main tools that we're going to use for this is going to be the fill tool or the bucket tool. And then we'll also be relying on this eyedropper, and especially when we get into the monochromatic and the color portrait. I'm going to do these very quickly, but definitely feel free to pause this as you're going and to try these out on your own. Now, the thing that I'm going to draw your attention to is once you click on this fill tool, you'll want to scroll down and you're going to see that there's something here called tolerance, and you're also going to have an opacity one. We don't have to worry about opacity. Opacity is like how see-through or not see-through something is. So if something is set to 100% opacity, you're not going to be able to see through it. Whereas if you're going a little bit lighter, less opacity is going to mean that you're going to be able to see kind of through to the other one. And that definitely comes into play with some other projects, not so much this one. Tolerance, though, this is going to be the key thing that you're going to need to play around with, and you're going to get to be an expert at. Default will set it to 15%. I always lower it, go at least halfway down. But I'm going to show you what happens when it's up high like that. And you think like 23%, that can't be too high. Though, yes, it is. So I'm going to use this eyedropper tool. I know that I've got it selected. And what it does is it just pretty much picks a color when I hover over it. So I hovered over this very, very dark area, and it selected it right here for me in the black. Now I have my tolerance all the way up to 23. So when I click on this area, you're gonna see that it colors a whole huge section of this portrait with this color. Now, if that is the effect you want, then definitely go for it. However, I do offer you this word of warning. I'm going to hit Control Z to undo it. That's a really nice feature that goes across pretty much all platforms at this point. Control Z will undo an action. Paint 3D lets you undo quite a bit. I think you get somewhere like 30 undos before you just can't undo anymore. Because Paint 3D is a free program, there are some limitations. And so some of them are, if I were to decide that I wanted to do this and then I went further along, you probably saw when I opened it up that I had a monochromatic version of this saved in Paint 3D. If I were to decide later on when my portrait was almost completely colored in that I didn't like this, I can't undo it unless I want to undo everything that came before it. So I always try and say, add on to it. It's a lot easier to add on than it is to take away. And that's true with a lot of art. So I'm going to do small portions of this. I'm not going to completely finish this out, but I am going to just show you what it kind of looks like. So it did just grab a couple of areas. I'm going to pick areas that I know I want to have like completely black. What I tend to do is I pick like the darkest areas, and then I move out to the next darkest areas. I do this in reverse too. You'll see me do it with monochromatic, and if that's a style that works for you, then by all means do that. But so I'm going to show you how to go from dark to light. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hover my eyedropper over the next darkest value that I can see. And I like to just go right next to my black areas and fill that in. And you'll notice that it actually kind of grabs some of the areas that the program considers to be of a similar value. And it'll automatically color that in. If you do not like it doing that, then you want to lower the tolerance. I'm okay with it doing it for the purposes of this video, so I'm going to leave it be. I will tell you this, hair tends to be a really, really tough one to kind of get a handle on, because something like this can happen. A lot of times it's very, very tedious, especially with fine hair. Where you're going to have like a lot of areas where I'm just clicking and it's going to grab a few areas. I might want to turn my tolerance up a little bit for hair, or I might want to save it to last so that it kind of creates like a little island for oops, for my thing for my color to go into it. You can see it's a little bit more contained, and if you're careful, it won't kind of do what it just did. It won't do that. But no guarantees, sometimes it will just happen. So I would really just kind of save hair for last. So as you can see, I have one value here. I might want to add on to it and make it a little bit, have it cover a little bit more. I feel like that might be a little too dark, so I'm gonna undo that. I might leave her eyebrows this color, and you'll see this is really just a matter of taste, how much I want it to take and how much I don't want it to take. All right, turn this up a little bit. If this starts happening where you're like clicking and clicking and it's only grabbing a little bit, you can undo it, or you can just kind of up the tolerance a little bit so that it grabs a bit more. This is a really great exercise in being able to see like what details are important, what details are going to tell you that this is a nose, and what details are going to make it a little bit more confusing for you. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the next lightest value. I generally, as a rule of thumb, I tend to think like 4-ish values are pretty good. 5 is really great, but you probably want to do no less than 4. And you can see that as I fill in a little bit more of this, I kind of lose a little bit more detail. And it starts to kind of get that vector look. I'm actually adding another one in here because there is a difference between where her eyebrow is and this, and I kind of do want to keep it a little bit different. Now, let's say I want to go back to this lighter gray. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click my highlighter, my eyedropper rather. I can click right back over there and boom, I have that same exact gray. So if I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot to do this eyebrow, this highlight under the eyebrow, I can just grab it right there. I'm going to pick a light area and I can fill that in a little bit. It really does help to have like a couple of mid-tones to choose from, and that way you have a little bit more freedom. So I like I like 4, but sometimes 5 is really where we need to be. Um, and so as you can see, I'm not going to finish this up because I do want to get to show you the next version of this, which is pretty much doing this, but just choosing a color to kind of to give it a different style too. But you can see it's kind of coming along, and you're seeing how I'm doing that. And again, like I said, I always leave hair for last. And again, if you don't want to lose that much kind of detail, this is really just a question of how much detail you want to have in it. So what we'll do is I'll show you this same picture, and I'll actually show you how I created this one with the green. So again, I'll try another one. Normally you would want to click save and you would want to save it as a Paint 3D, but this is just a demo, so I'm going to leave it as it is. I will show you again. You go in, you insert your picture. We'll just grab this one again. And the only difference between doing it with the monochromatic is you want to pick a color, and you can pick one of these ones down here, or you can, I've added some in the past. You can also kind of click and say, I don't really like this turquoise. I kind of want to make it like a darker blue. And you can use your color selection here by sliding. You can also slide down here and get like purples, pinks. You get a much wider variety than the pre-selected ones. The colors that this tends to work very well with are going to be reds, blues, greens, purples. The lighter colors like pinks, yellows, and oranges, they can be a little bit iffy. It really depends. Sometimes it's a little bit harder. Before I showed you, I grabbed the darker values. I'm going to show you how to do that in reverse. Sometimes people tend to like to work it this way. So I'm going to, I like this kind of bluish area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a light value. Again, it's going to be very close to white, if not completely white. It's really your choice at this point. And I'm just going to kind of go in and, oops, selected, I don't. I'm going to go right in there and fill that in. It's probably already set to 15%. Oh, no, it's actually where I left it, which is nice. And again, I'm gonna do a little bit of this. I'm not gonna do a whole lot of it because I do want to give you an example of what it looks like when you're doing it with a color photograph. That is going to be a little bit more intense, and that's why I'm saving it for last. Because I want it to be something that you can see and kind of build towards. So I've just worked a little bit around on her face. I plugged in a couple of the highlights. And so what I'll do is I'm going to kind of work diagonal down towards the bottom. So I'm going to pick like a middle tone blue that's somewhat in the light area. And I will work my way out from my light areas. And this is, again, it's just kind of me clicking. Sometimes I find a tolerance that I like, and I just kind of stick with it until it does something that I absolutely don't like, and then I have to adjust. But for the most part, you do kind of get a feel for how the program is going to behave and how it's going to fill things in. That said, there are some times that the program will just kind of behave the way it wants to. In one way, and then the next time you visit it, it might behave in a different way. I'm gonna go for another middle tone. I'm gonna go for like a little bit darker of a color. And again, 4 is definitely the minimum that I would do, but I definitely encourage you to try for 5 or even more. You'll see in the next, maybe you don't like that. You'll see in the next one how we're going to use way more colors. And it really, you can very, very quickly get lost in it. That's why I definitely recommend trying these versions out first, getting comfortable with it, seeing how the program, not only how the program responds, but also what your tastes are. you'll find that you'll have a preference for how you want certain things to look, and you'll get better. I know that definitely from when I first started making these to where I'm at now doing this demonstration for you, totally different. Not totally different, but I definitely have a different feel and a different style that I shoot for when I create these. All right, I'm gonna go for my next darkest style, darkest value rather, and I'll probably try and fill in her hair with that. Maybe that's my dog saying hello to you. And fill this in. Again, I'm not going to completely finish this out because I think you get the idea now. And again, a lot of this is more just how you personally want it to look. But it's just a good way to go back, a good way to kind of get to know the program. And again, just remembering if you want to go back to a color that you already picked, you just click on that eyedropper and you hover over the color that you want. You definitely want to fill this in a little bit more. I've done this very quickly, and that's why Zoom really, really helps you out on these. And also just kind of like clicking a second time, you'll notice that it gets a little bit, it fills it in a little bit more. Okay. So that's what it kind of looks like as far as monochromatic. I would obviously finish this out a bit more, but I don't want this video to take forever. So I'm going to show you the very last thing that you can do with this. This one tends to be my favorite version of it. It definitely does, though, get to be quite intense. So I'm going to insert in a color picture that I actually downloaded from earlier. And I'll show you, it's the same techniques. You're still going to use your eyedropper and you're still going to use your bucket tool, but you can select a little bit more. I will say this is not the best picture. And the reason why it's not the best picture is because even though there are some lights and some darks here, there's really not a whole lot of shadow happening with her face here. So just by looking at this picture, I know that this is not going to be a picture that's going to have a whole bunch of different vectors and tones and stuff like that, which might be good. I might want to keep this just kind of as a simple, not too detailed picture, but I will show you at the end of this video one of the examples that I have that had way more contrast, a bit more tones, and you'll see hopefully the difference in the outcome. So again, you definitely want to zoom in and you're going to use your eyedropper tool. I'm just going to kind of pick, you want to make sure your eyedropper is picked. And again, you can pick your lights or your darks. I think there's a lot more darks in here, so I'll try filling some of those out. Maybe I'll do this a little bit less. This is kind of just like you get a feel for it. And normally I don't start with hair, but because her hair is like one of the places where you can get like a pretty cool vector effect, I'm gonna try and show some of that in here. I might want to kick my tolerance up a little bit more. Hair is an area where you can kind of get, you really do have to play with that tolerance and to get the effect that you want. I kind of want it to be a little bit chunky, but not that chunky. But as I said, this is a picture that doesn't have a whole crazy lot of value to it. So it kind of is what it is. But that's cool because that's the effect that we're going to get. I'll show you a little bit in here. Now, you'll notice that I do my eyedropper in a couple of different areas, and then I go and try and pick a new area. So like with her ear, I know some of these darker shadows kind of are going to use the same color. So I was okay with that. I'm not going to get too crazy into the colors and the shadows here. But you can see that there are definitely different values here. And as I keep going, you will see you get that vector styling. Maybe that's a little bit too much. All right, let's go in. Let's try and get her eyebrows a little bit. Let's see what that does. Eyebrows, again, they behave a lot like hair, especially when they're like kind of combed and not really filled in the way hers are here. So you gotta sometimes be a little bit careful. Okay, go in here. And again, how many different colors you want to choose are really up to you. How in detail you want to get is up to you. But I do find it very, very helpful to kind of work within an area. So like you'll see, I worked in this area. I went from here to here to here to here. That definitely helps me out as far as my process. Another really cool thing about this is you really do get a sense of like, wow, okay, the whites of her eyes are not actually white. That's more of like a gray color, and that can really help you out in your artwork later on. When you're tempted to use one color for something, and you'll find that actually you might need to use another one. So hopefully you're even with as little value as there is in this picture, you can kind of see that I'm still getting a whole bunch of different values and colors when I go to fill these in. Generally, when I tell people to draw, I try to get them to work the whole picture at once. You don't want to say focus on somebody's nostril and then find that it's like 2 inches too high or something like that. But in this case, it is really, really helpful to kind of work next to each other, next to the areas that you're coloring in. All right, so I'm only going to do this for a little bit more so you can kind of, I think we're getting the idea now of what this kind of looks like and what it feels like when you're filling these in. And you'll notice sometimes it'll kind of go over itself. So you've got to be kind of careful not to let it do that. Try and get this eye, and I will show you one of my finished ones, just so that you get the general idea. But I really like this one. It's a really cool way to like kind of add a style to your own pictures. It's a cool way to, if you want to create a logo or if you want to create a character or if you want to create a poster, this is definitely a style that I've been seeing a lot of. And I mean, if you just do a search of it, there are some really, really cool vector portraits out there. And I've said this before too. Paint 3D, again, it's a free program. And so there are going to be certain things that it does. You can do this in Photoshop. You can do it in Illustrator. You can do this in Paint 3D, MS Paint. You can do this on like GIMP. You can do this on a variety of programs. It's just kind of like choosing the difference between, say, using an iPhone versus a Droid, or if you're switching from PC to an Apple product of some sort. Um, you can get the same effect, you just might have to do it in a different way. So I hope you're like getting the general feel for this. Now I've got to pump it up a little bit more. Um, but you can get some really, really cool effects, and you can get into as much or as little detail as you want in here. Like if I really wanted her eye to show, her pupil to show rather, I could do that, or I could continue to fill this in so that, you know, you just kind of see that, so that it just becomes black. So the things you definitely want to remember here, you want to adjust your tolerance. You want to definitely use your eyedropper. Control Z is going to be your friend, and definitely zoom in, okay? Because that's where you're going to get into your tighter areas. And then one of the things I will show you, I'll pull this one up. This is one of my finished ones. I took a picture and I started filling in, you know, same process as you saw before, but you can see there's a whole lot more value in this one. There's a lot more shadows, and there are just like a cajillion different tones between the hair, the shirt, the texture of the cookie, and all that kind of stuff. So you can get you can get into crazy, crazy detail, or you can keep it pretty plain, which is what my earlier one kind of showed. So I really like this because it gives you a lot of variety in what you want to do. So hopefully this helps you, and I look forward to seeing your work.